Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Chronofang Cardfight Vanguard Gear Chronicle deck profile for August 2020. Been getting around to collecting up all the cards needed for the Chronofang deck for Gear Chronicle, which focuses on the basically opposite of Chronojet, Chronofang Tiger, and its grade 4 counterpart, Chrono Tiger Rebellion, to basically have additional effects depending on how many cards you have in your hand, but also sharing with the same discard to ride the grade 4 abilities that the deck shares as a whole. So a very, very fun deck. I'm happy with the results. Missing a few cards for it, but I'll show what cards that I am missing, what I'd replace throughout the video as well, just because some of them are a little more difficult, and some people that are building this deck as well would probably want some substitutes for some of the cards, including the very expensive double rare Steam Skara Urcab, which is great for, supporting the deck, but just for the price it is for a double rare is quite insane, while some of the other more important cards, like Chrono Tiger and Chronofang are definitely needed to actually build this deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the grade 4s in the deck, you're very limited because you can't really mix around like Lost Legend and Chronojet, the types of grade 4s you run, since Chronofang focuses only on Chrono Tiger Rebellion. When it attacks, activate all the effects below according to the number of cards in your hand. So with 5 or less, choose 2 of your opponent's front row rear guards and retire them. 3 or less, 3 of your front row units get plus 10,000 until end of turn. 1 or less, turn all the cards in your damage zone face down, and this unit gets all of your opponent's guardians get minus 5,000 power until end of turn. So the less cards you have in your hand with this card, the better when attacking. So the more you invest with your plays, also the better. So even if you have to discard multiple cards for Chronofang's, effect and ability to ride into the grade 4, better the investment, so then you can have all these different skills go off, which could definitely finish off your opponent depending on the guards they're using, and also just the power that you'll give to all of your front row units, and depending on the force marker you use, which even with this deck you can go for Imaginary Gift Force 2 and have immense pressure against your opponent. And then just having the power to retire your opponent's rear guards alone, which is having 5 or less if you don't want to fully invest your hand and just keep some for the defense, having that and taking away their front row units can be all the better as well. So this is a great grade 4 to go into, and the main one you want to rely on in this deck for that play. So having this as your go-to option definitely needed, since it's the only grade 4 you will be using in the deck. Now for the grade 3, I am running 4 I was about to say Chrono Tiger Rebellion again. Chronofang Tiger. With this one, on Vanguard, discard 1 or more cards from your hand with the sum of their grades being 3 or greater. Search your deck for up to 1 grade 4, ride at a stand, and shuffle your deck. At the end of this turn, retire that unit and ride a grade 3 from your soul as rest. So it has the same skill as Chronojet and also Lost Legend, with the discard costs for riding a grade 4 from the deck, which your go-to one, as we said, is the all-powerful Chrono Tiger Rebellion. And also, when rode upon by Chrono Tiger Rebellion, discard a card from your hand, and one of your vanguards gets additional critical and drive +1 until end of turn. So with Urcab, you also have the additional drive +1 by counterblasting 1 and discarding a card from your hand while it's on the vanguard or rear to give your vanguard another additional drive check. So you'll be going for 4 drive checks in total with your Chrono Tiger Rebellion with the additional critical. So immense pressure against your opponent. If they don't have a perfect guard, they better throw down a lot of different cards, because if you have the Imaginary Gift Force 2 along with the plus 10 power that Chrono Tiger can do, or even just with the Force 1 markers giving you more and more power, and then the additional critical that Chronofang can provide, it is that much scarier as well to go up against your opponent. If they let that attack go through, they could greatly regret it depending on what your drive checks will be. And that is it for the grade 3s and 4s. This is sticking to the main playstyle, but we have plenty of search power to get these cards out from the deck and onto the field as well. And with the release of the Chronojet trial deck, I was able to also focus on some of those cards to help support this deck and its playstyle, aside from some of the older support from the Astral Force that works well, but I just like the support better for its consistency. So for some of the grade 2s, I am running 4 Stroboscope Dragon. At the end of the battle, I attack attacked, you Soul Blast 1, discard a card from your hand, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it, and if your Vanguard is grade 4, draw a card. So with Stroboscope, you're not limited to your Vanguard being Chrono Jet or, next stage. So working very well with Chrono Tiger Rebellion being a grade 4, you'll get that additional draw power after you attack with Chrono Tiger. You want some more draw power to rely on, so Stroboscope definitely does come in handy for that. And using the Soul, which you don't really have to use for anything else in this deck, which just have, when placed effects, or just when wrote upon by the specifics, which, used for these cards means you have more resources to use for all your other cards in the deck. We don't have Urcab in this build currently. I'll show what to take out for it, but having, the Counterblast free for that makes up for it as well. And when it be discarded, it has the additional grade 3 spot. The spot for Urcab would be this next slot, which is Steam Breaker Dudu, which this one, during your turn, if you discard cards from your hand, all of your units in the same column as this unit get plus 5,000. So it's just a good power boost card along with the 10,000 that Chrono Tiger can provide. But if you have Steam Scarlet Urcab or any copies of that card as well, you can replace them for this card in the deck. It's definitely a more, meta-relevant card, being a counterblast and a discard for that drive +1 while it's on the rear guard, and from the hand being the discard cost if you need it for Chrono Tiger Rebellion, all the better. This is just a more budget-friendly option if you want it, but going for that card, I'm not sure the exact price, I just know it's pretty up there right now in value. So every time you get one, you can replace it for this card as the spot in the deck for your grade 2s. And then for the last spot in the deck, I have 3 Chronobite Tigers. Now this can be a 4th Chronobite if you want. If that being the case, you could take out 1 Stroboscope for a 4th copy of Chronobite. With this, at the beginning of your ride phase on Vanguard Circle, draw a card and then discard a card from your hand. So it's just draw power, so you can go into your Chronofang that much faster because it's the only grade 3. You need some consistency to get this card into your hand. And on rear guard, it has a once per turn, discard a card from your hand, and this unit gets critical +1 until end of turn. So working on the rear guard, this card is great just for that setup, being able to give the critical, but also benefiting for Chrono Tiger to have that additional less cards in hand, more abilities for this card to use as well. It's a once per turn, but also if you have another Chronobite on the rear guard, you have that option for that one to use it and have your whole rear guard be the additional critical, which then for that point you would also definitely want to go for Imaginary Gift Force 1 if you have this field set up before you decide what your Imaginary Gift will be for the game, because that additional power with these extra criticals and the plus 10,000 power will mean your opponent will have a difficult time even guarding the rear guard attacks if they decide to guard heavily against the Chrono Tiger Rebellion grade 4 Vanguard attack. And that is it for the grade 2s. We will now move on to the grade 1s. I run 4 Chrono Tooth Tiger with this one on Vanguard at the beginning of your ride phase. Draw a card. It's not a discard like Chrono Bite, which is much better for sure for that consistency. And when this card is discarded from hand during your turn, counter +1, draw a card and call this card to rear as rest. So a great way to recover this card after you use it for some of your other discard resources, even with cards like Stroboscope, being able to use this card for that fodder and more counterblast usage for this card to get back onto the field as rest, of course, but next turn you'll be able to restand it as a full 8k power to boost some of your other cards on the field. So it's definitely another staple for this deck, just very reliable with what it's meant to do in the deck as well. So you definitely want it as a viable ride target also. The next one being just as important, and that is Steam Breath Dragon. Now this was no way specifically used for Chrono Jet. It's a generic grade 3 searcher for Gear Chronicle. One place from hand, look at top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 from among them, put into your hand, shuffle your deck. If you put a card, discard a card from your hand. So you're searching for your main go-to card, which is your Chronofang Tiger. So this card is perfect for this deck, released after the Astral Force. So with it, and then during the turn you discard a card from your hand, it gets plus 5,000 power on Vanguard or rear. This is just great for the deck as a whole for that search consistency. So running for this in this deck definitely won't fail you at all when you're going after your specific plays. And I also run 3 Bearing Rover. I know we had some cards in the earlier Gear Chronicle sets that count as grade 3s for the discard, but being another ride target when it attacks, to discard a card from your hand and draw a card. You really don't need the bind effect for this deck. It doesn't focus on binding cards for any of your abilities. It just focuses on having less cards in your hand. So Bearing Rover, that much easier than the rare we had in the first set for Gear Chronicle support. Makes it all the better for sure to have this card to rely on. And also being the grade 3 cost when discarded makes so you have more easy ride targets if there are other cards in the deck, like Cab, if you're running it, if you want to rely on just having that card on rearguard and not discarding it for cost for your Stride. And lastly, to finish off the grade 1s, I run 3 Quickie Worker. Now, you don't really use the Soul for much in this deck either, aside from Stroboscope, so being able to use this when placed from hand, put up to 1 card from your drop zone on the bottom of your deck. If you put a grade 3 or greater, Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. Even if you don't put the, grade back for the Soul Blast and then draw a card, just putting a grade 4 Chrono Tiger back onto the bottom of the deck for you to reuse makes this card all the better in this deck to use for consistency, so you don't draw into it, so you don't accidentally, discard it or anything of that cost. You always have that recycle power with this card. Even if, like I said, if you don't use the draw power, you'll always have your grade 4 to go into, since we are running a lower number of them in this deck also. And that's it for the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s. Most fitting starter in the deck is Chrono Tiger. This is just the one you want to go for. It has the quick order ability as well with the new errata text we will be receiving and the draw card when wrote upon, but just fitting for the whole one. We have all the different stars for Gear Chronicles, so you definitely want this one for Chronofang. For the trigger lineup, I decided to go a different method with this one and going the 12 critical pressure option, so 4 Reclaim Key Draco Kid, 4 Steam Bomber, and also for the Sentinel spot, I'm running 4 Heart Thump Worker. Now, it really does feel like we're running a lot of Chrono Jet related cards, but this card, once again, no way related to Chrono Jet. It just has a 30,000k shield, but running 12 critical is quite scary in this deck with your Chrono Tiger Rebellion. If your opponent no guards that attack, with 4 drive checks potentially, if you hit enough criticals along with Chrono Fang, you could end the game right then and there if your opponent doesn't get any heal triggers with all those solid attacks against them. And lastly, for the heals, with Uluru being the Chrono Jet starter, I wanted to run 4 Steam Doctor Martash for the Chrono Fang deck. Just more fitting running this one, separating the 2 decks out for a true rival-based theme. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm happy I was finally able to bring the deck profile. I know I still have a good amount of the cards to collect for it. When I get around to that, I'll just have to hope that maybe we'll get some more Gear Chronicle support for the form of Chrono Fang Tiger in the future as well. But until then, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.